In this analysis, I will explore the extent to which narrative plays a role in the design of two popular video games. Tomb Raider 2013, developed by Crystal Dynamics, and Fallout 4 2015, created by Bethesda Game Studios. Both games are loved by their communities and praised by critics for their gameplay and compelling narratives. Tomb Raider, known for its story-rich focus and linear level structure, is starkly contrasted to Fallout 4 because of its non-linear story and open-world exploration with interactable NPCs. By comparing these two completely different but similar games, I aim to find how narrative can shape a player's experience and engagement with the games. My analysis will involve a close look into narrative and gameplay, character development, world building, player engagement, and the structure of the narrative in both games. I believe that this will not only broaden our understanding, but also provide valuable insights for future games. I will use 2 YouTube videos of the entire gameplay to help my analysis further. Tomb Raider 2013 has a complex story that is made up of the main character, Lara Croft, who is on an expedition with her fellow friends and colleagues to find the lost kingdom of Yamatai. They wind up stranded on an island due to a storm. The player will have to guide Lara to save herself and her friends from the evil tribes that inhabit the island. This was all told to the player through a longer starting cinematic, showing to the player rather than getting them to play and having a tutorial here, which would make the player have to split their concentration between learning the gameplay and understanding what's going on in the first place. On the other hand, Fallout 4 took the players play the first part of the game approach by having them customize the 2 main characters straight away and play in the world right from the beginning, then having them walk to the vault whilst the bombs were going off rather than what Tomb Raider did by just having a cinematic of the boat crash. This suggests that Tomb Raider is going for more of a cinematic approach to the narrative rather than what Fallout 4 are doing, where it's more of an immersive player narrative where you, the player, are the centre of the story rather than watching Lara be the main story. Both games are rich in story, but Tomb Raider goes with a linear story and puzzles that add to it, and Fallout 4 has a non-linear story with vast exploration and NPC interaction. Lara Croft starts scared and alone, being washed up on the beach and then having to find her way out of the cave, not having any tools or help, but she is driven to get out of bad situations and see the light at the end of the tunnel. When she gets captured and has to shoot that guy to escape, she starts crying, showing regret. The cinematic allows the emotion to come through the screen and affect the player, allowing the player to feel this emotion for Lara since she had just killed a man. In Fallout, we start with the sole survivor, happy in their home with their partner and child, and then we see them scared when the bombs are dropping. We get a cinematic for when the child is taken, but this is still done through the player's perspective and allows the player camera control, showing immersion differently from what was in Tomb Raider. For the rest of the game, we see Lara become more confident when facing the islanders, showing her growth in confidence and drive to get to safety. However, she still shows sympathy when her friends are killed through the cinematics, allowing the player to feel emotions at the right time, since focusing on the game and listening to dialogue can often get lost. The Fallout 4 character, on the other hand, loses this progression in how the character acts and shows emotions throughout the game. The locked interactions with NPCs are stale and feel borderline robotic at times. This doesn't allow the character to develop this arc that it should have, going from a scared vault dweller in the wasteland to a hero, and they seem to act like the same person. The 2 games vastly differ regarding the worlds and how they are built. The world in Tomb Raider is linear and almost forces the player through it, allowing the story to unfold as the developers intended. In contrast, Fallout 4 is an open-world game that allows players to go anywhere, even when the story wants them to go to a specific place. In Tomb Raider, the world feels purpose-built and is a running track for Lara to follow rather than an island that Lara is exploring. Whereas in Fallout, the open world allows the player to feel like they have been placed in an actual scenario where bombs have dropped, and the land is all destroyed and decayed with radiation everywhere. This choice allows players to find themselves more immersed in the lore and narrative of the game, due to how the world lays things out, along with how there are quests in Fallout, but not in Tomb Raider, which shows how the developers want you to act in each game world. In Fallout, they want the player to take a detour and explore with the quests, but in Tomb Raider, they only have the primary objective shown with the marker when using the Q ability. Tomb Raider also has character half-cinematic moments when traversing parts of levels. It might be things that Lara needs to crouch or even crawl under, but will only go forward when the player is holding down W. I like this mechanic as it is 1, satisfying, and 2, it allows the player to interact with not just enemies and constant shooting, but the world around them. Fallout misses this character-to-world interaction and focuses more on character-to-NPC interaction. Tomb Raider engages the player in the narrative by telling the story through the world and the cinematics. But what often gets lost in gameplay is the voice lines and little things that Lara says that, if you hear them, can feel like you're there listening to Lara in that situation. Also, with the ability to show what the current objective is or where the player needs to go, this makes it easier, but also allows the player not to get as frustrated when not knowing where to go, and keeps the player engaged and interested in the story side rather than figuring out where to go next. Fallout is a weird one for player engagement. It's the main story of Where Is My Child keeps players playing and wanting to find out what happened to him. It is also the side quests that random NPCs around the world that players will stumble upon that keep them interested too. Fallout's main feature that keeps the players thinking of the story is the option to select replies to NPCs. Creating this selection makes the player think as to what to respond and can change the whole course of the story, leading to multiple endings, which makes the player want to play it again after finishing the story so they can play for alternate endings. But in Tomb Raider, the player is controlling Lara through the linear world in each interaction. Whether it be a shootout or meeting with her friends, it will come and go for that playthrough, and not being able to go back, as well as giving the player no choice to change the path or how the game plays out, since it's locked in this linear playthrough, and you have to forget it to want to play it again. Whereas with Fallout, you have that leave when I want to do something else in the world and I'll come back later, as well as the player control of choosing how the story ends up playing out. Tomb Raider does a fantastic job of integrating the story into the gameplay mechanics. This creates a flowing story that the player can immerse themselves in while completing each puzzle, which effortlessly leads to the next part of the story. Tomb Raider's narrative makes the game feel smooth to play, with not many loading screens and nothing to catch you out on purpose. Fallout uses the NPCs to tell the story with multiple choice answers, allowing a narrative tree that branches out, causing multiple endings, along with being able to go anywhere you want to. This does make the game feel a bit staggered and slow at times when running across fields that don't have much in them, or when waiting for the next piece of the story. Tomb Raider ends up with a very cinematic film-like tone when playing. It feels like you are in a film with added interactions. That's how story and cinematic-like the game is. Fallout, on the other hand, doesn't feel cinematic at all, and it is its own feeling when playing Fallout, like you are in your own world when following this person's story rather than you are there watching Lara escape this island. You are walking as the person trying to find their child in Fallout. Tomb Raider does an excellent job of balancing the non-linear gameplay with the linear storyline, and being able to switch to a cinematic and then right back into gameplay is very cool. Fallout takes a more non-linear approach to everything, being able just to go anywhere the player wants. In conclusion, the role of narrative design in both Tomb Raider and Fallout is not only prominent, but also pioneering. However, both have demonstrated that there are multiple effective ways of telling a story. Influencing the design of future games, whether it be a sequel like Fallout 76, which when first released had none of the NPCs in the world to interact and reply to, leading it to have bad reviews and generally not being very good. But once the classic Fallout narrative tree and multiple endings were added, many people gave the game a second chance and liked it. And for Tomb Raider going on to have 2 more sequels with the same design philosophy, and having great reviews for both Rise of the Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now, being able to tell a story, not just in a book or through a film, has expanded the boundaries of how a story is told and what can even be in a story due to video games. I was struck by the pure depth and thought process that has gone into both Fallout 4's and Tomb Raider's narratives, which has significantly enhanced my appreciation for not just stories in games, but for story-driven games themselves.